The Shoe Fetish Slayer, Jerry Brudos. Jerome Henry Brudos, also known as the Shoe Fetish Slayer, was an American serial killer known for his obsession with women's shoes. Brudos' shoe fetish can be traced back to when he was only 5 years old, after playing with a pair of stilettos he'd found in a junkyard. As a teenager, Brudos began physically attacking random women, sometimes choking them unconscious only to steal their shoes. At the age of 17, he was finally arrested and admitted for a psychiatric evaluation at the Oregon State Hospital, where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but he was released and graduated high school with the rest of his class. He married in 1961 and around this time started complaining of migraine headaches and blackouts that could only be relieved by going out prowling in search of shoes and lacy undergarments. Brudos kept all of the stolen shoes and women's clothing in a garage that he specifically forbade his wife from entering without approval, and set up an intercom system for her to request entrance. His first murder was in January 1968, when a door-to-door saleswoman named Linda Slauson accepted his invitation to come inside his home, only to be knocked unconscious and strangled to death. He dressed up her dead body using his collection of women's clothing and sawed off one of her feet before discarding her body in the Willamette River. In November 1968, Brudos offered to help a motorist named Jan Susan Whitney, who'd broken down on Interstate 5 between Salem and Albany, Oregon. Instead of helping her, he sexually assaulted and strangled her with a leather belt. Just like with Linda, Brudos took her body back to his garage to dress it up. But this time he also engaged in necrophilia before tying her body to a railroad tie and discarding her in the Willamette River. Only a few months later, in March 1969, Brudos abducted 18-year-old Karen Sprinker from the parking lot of a department store, during which time he himself was dressed in women's clothing. As with the others, he took her back to his garage only to torture and eventually kill her before tying her deceased body to a car engine and throwing her in the same river. Finally, on April 23rd, he abducted his fourth and final murder victim, Linda Saley. Her fate was nearly identical to the others and was tied to a car's transmission before sinking into the Willamette River. Luckily, only a month later, a fisherman would come across the bodies of Saley and Sprinker and called the police. The police asked students at a nearby university campus about suspicious men, and one led them to Brudos, who had phoned her several times to ask her for a date. At his garage, the police found copper wire that was determined to have been cut with the same tool that cut the cords used to tie the bodies. Brudos was arrested, and he made a full confession. Brudos was convicted for 3 of the murders, but there wasn't enough evidence to convict for Slauson's death, since he hadn't taken any pictures of her like the others. Jerry Brudos died in prison in 2006 after serving 37 years for his crimes. For more true crime content, be sure to follow us at Crime Soup Podcast. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and we have full-length episodes wherever you get your podcasts.